In the hushed glow of cinema screens and the flicker of television lights, there exists a peculiar unspoken agreement between the audience and the characters of horror films. We, the watchers, anticipate a predictable pattern. The characters, our proxies in the terrifying unknown, will inevitably make choices so baffling, so perilously wrong, that calamity is all but guaranteed. If they were merely sensible, if they called the police at the first oddity or fled at the first sign of danger, the narrative tension would evaporate like mist at dawn. The horror genre, in its visceral way, relies on these missteps, these leaps off the proverbial cliff. So, let us delve into a few of those unforgettable moments where a character's ill-fated decision became the very fuel for our morbid fascination. But beware, for the path we tread is littered with spoilers, a cautionary journey through cinematic folly. Number 10, Jeepers Creepers, an inquisitive afterthought in Nowhere Land. Imagine, if you will, a bone-jarring chase through the desolate, sun-baked heart of nowhere. A sinister truck, its driver a terrifying enigma, relentlessly pursue our protagonists, Derry and Trish Jenner. In the frantic aftermath of their initial escape, they witness something profoundly disturbing, a figure, dripping with malevolence, unloading what appears to be a grotesque, rolled-up corpse and depositing it into a dark, rainwater-swollen pipe alongside the lonely highway. "How is that?" Derry exclaims, horror gripping him. Yet, even as the ominous figure, later known as the Creeper, casts a knowing, chilling glare their way, a gaze that screams, "I see you, and now you must die," Derry's curiosity, or perhaps a morbid compulsion born of fear, overrides his better judgment. The Creeper vanishes, only to reappear moments later, slamming their car violently off the road. A rational mind would flee, seeking the nearest town, the nearest phone, the nearest. But this is horror. Derry, spurred by an inexplicable need to know, decides to backtrack, alone, to investigate that very pipe, the place where the Creeper knows they witnessed his dastardly deed. His impromptu investigation is cut short by a scurrying of rats, sending him tumbling backward into the waiting jaws of the Creeper, who had been lying in ambush. A simple call for help could have saved him, but instead, he became the monster's next target. Number 9, Drag Me to Hell, a missed opportunity for immortality. In the climactic, gut-wrenchingly terrifying moments of Drag Me to Hell, Christine Brown stands at the precipice of eternal damnation, or salvation, depending on the envelope. Having seemingly rid herself of the cursed La Monica button that would condemn her to hell, her relief is short-lived. Her boyfriend, Clay, retrieves an envelope he thought contained only a quarter, a trivial miscalculation with dire consequences. He hands it to her, assuming it holds the key to her freedom. In a frantic, desperate race against the encroaching darkness, Christine jams the wrong envelope, the one containing the actual, soul-binding button, into the coin slot of an ATM machine. But wait, Clay then pulls out another familiar envelope. This is it. This is the one containing the quarter, the simple mistake that could save her. All Christine needs to do is open it, verify its contents, and her torment would end. Yet, in her panicked, tunnel-visioned state, driven by the sheer terror of the moment, she fails to check. She fails to make the simple, logical decision. And in that tragic oversight, she seals her fate, ensuring her eternal suffering at the hands of the Lamia. A single, momentary lapse in judgment, the failure to verify the contents of that envelope, condemned her soul forever. Number 8, I Am Legend, the noble sacrifice, questionably executed. The electrifying conclusion of I Am Legend finds Robert Neville, the last man on Earth, in a desperate race against time. He has lured the alpha of the vampire dark seekers into his laboratory, intending to destroy both the monster and the potential key to its kind, a vaccine, preventing it from falling into the wrong hands. He secures Anna and her son in a reinforced coal shed, places the vaccine antidote in Anna's hand, and then, with a grim determination, pulls the pin on a grenade, blowing himself up in a fiery explosion meant to take down the rampaging alpha. A selfless act, perhaps, but was it the smartest? With the alpha distracted and engaged, Neville had a fortified shelter just steps away, the coal shed, now secure after placing the antidote inside. He could have easily lobbed the grenade towards the confrontation, retreated into the shed, and closed the door, likely surviving to fight another day or at least ensure the vaccine's safety. Sacrificing himself seems excessive when a few steps back into safety were so readily available. It's a powerful ending, but one tinged with the question of whether heroism sometimes overshadows simple survival tactics. Number 7, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Curiosity Kills the Cat. The iconic, heart-stopping death of Tatum Riley in Scream is a masterclass in cinematic irony and terrible timing. Trapped in her own garage by Ghostface, she manages a valiant, fleeting fight back. She gets the killer on the ground, a precious moment of advantage. There's chaos, opportunity, a moment to stomp, to kick, to search desperately for a weapon, anything to turn the tide. But instead, in that fleeting, critical moment, Tatum makes a choice that defies belief. Rather than capitalizing on her opponent's temporary vulnerability, she turns her back and fumbles towards the small pet door in the garage door, apparently thinking it's her escape route. A narrow, plastic-lined portal, clearly incapable of containing a human body, let alone allowing passage back into the relative safety of the house beyond. It's a baffling, almost comical misjudgment born of panic, but it proves fatal. As she struggles, Ghostface strikes, ending her life in a moment of sheer, avoidable horror. Number 6, Saw 2, the key locked away in plain sight. Addison's demise in Saw 2 stands as a particularly egregious example of horror movie decision-making gone awry. Trapped in a glass-walled booth designed to drive her mad, she desperately searches for a way out. Inside the booth, visible but unreachable, is an antidote to the lethal gas filling the room. There are 2 small holes in the glass, each containing a razor-sharp blade. Addison, in her panic, inserts both of her hands into these holes. The trap snaps shut, severing both her hands. It's a brutal, unforgettable scene. Yet, the path to safety was almost laughably simple. On the other side of the glass booth, clearly visible if Addison had simply walked around the booth, which was large enough for her to do so, was a lock. Sticking out of the lock was a key. By merely circumnavigating the booth, Addison could have used the key to unlock the door, retrieved the antidote, and saved herself without losing her hands. Her fatal flaw? Fixating on the immediate threat of the blades inside the holes, rather than seeking the obvious solution outside the box. A tragic oversight. Number 5, Jaws, the greed that fed the beast. Sometimes, the horror isn't a sudden, blood-curdling scream, but a slow burn, maddening refusal to acknowledge danger, driven by petty greed. In Peter Benchley's and Steven Spielberg's seminal Jaws, the mayor of Amity Island, Larry Vaughn, embodies this kind of terrifying folly. Despite mounting evidence of a monstrous great white shark lurking dangerously close to shore, including confirmed attacks and expert warnings, Vaughn stubbornly refuses to close the beaches. Not because he doesn't understand the risk, but because he calculates that the income from summer tourists is more valuable than their actual safety. Look, we depend on the summer people here for our very lives, he argues, prioritizing the town's finances over human lives. His dismissive attitude, his insistence on keeping the beaches open, we're not going to close the beaches, even as the body count rises, is a slow, suffocating horror in itself. It's not the shark's teeth that sting first, but the cold, calculating indifference that puts innocent lives at risk for the sake of a tourist season. Vaughn's greed ultimately contributes to more deaths, making his initial poor decision resonate with chilling consequences. Number 4, The Purge. A house divided and easily conquered. The Purge films are a treasure trove of terrible decisions made under duress, but few are as pointedly disastrous as those made by the Sandin family in the first installment. The night is set for the Purge, a 12-hour window where all crime, including murder, is legal. The Sandins have invested heavily in their home security system, a fortified safe room, and an arsenal, all designed to keep them safe during the Purge. Yet, their son Charlie, operating the security cameras like a misguided vigilante, spots a terrified stranger outside, being pursued by Purge participants. Against all logic and the explicit warnings of his father, who understands the lethal nature of this night, Charlie disarms the security system and opens the door to a complete stranger. This single, idiotic act invites a violent predator into their sanctuary, setting off a chain of events leading directly to the brutal deaths of several family members, including the father himself. But the horror doesn't stop there. In a subsequent moment of sheer panic and misjudgment, the entire family, having just witnessed the chaos and violence outside, decides to leave their impenetrable safe room. Why? Because the threat is now inside, and they feel safer confronting it armed in the house. It defies logic. They had a fortress, food, water, weapons, and safety. Instead, they venture out into the darkness, splitting up their defenses, making themselves easy targets for the maniacs gathered outside. Their decision to abandon the safety of the safe room, despite having guns and plans, ultimately leads to their downfall. It's a double dose of poor choices, inviting disaster in, then abandoning the only secure refuge they had. Number 3, Halloween Resurrection. The masked obsession. After decades of relentless killing, Michael Myers, the boogeyman himself, is finally caught in the 8th installment of the Halloween franchise. Trapped, dangling, seemingly defeated, he faces the woman who has haunted his every step, Laurie Strode. She has him. All she needs to do is cut the rope he's dangling from, let him fall, and end the nightmare once and for all. But Laurie, consumed by a lifetime of fear and obsession, allows her desire for confirmation, for finality, to override her survival instinct. Just before severing the rope, she leans in close, desperate to see the face beneath the mask, to know for certain if this is truly the man she has spent her life running from. In that split second she wastes, confirming her suspicions or her fears, Michael's free hands find purchase. He climbs back up, regains his footing, and the chase resumes. A simple, decisive action could have ended the threat. Instead, Laurie's morbid curiosity and desire for absolute certainty gave the seemingly unstoppable killer just enough time to escape and continue his reign of terror. It was a decision fueled by emotion, not logic, and the consequences were dire. Number 2, Scream, The Garage of Doom. Another iconic Scream moment, Tatum's death is almost laughably avoidable in retrospect. Cornered in her own garage by the masked ghost-face killer, she manages to turn the tables, momentarily pinning him down with the garage door. This is her chance, her fleeting moment of advantage. Any sensible person, faced with a killer you have just managed to subdue, would stomp, kick, scream, or look for anything, a nearby tool, a can of oil, the car keys, to maintain control. Instead, Taeyong, inexplicably, decides that now is the perfect time to try and squeeze through the tiny, plastic pet door in the garage door itself. She turns her back on the killer who is already getting up, completely abandoning her defensive advantage. And the pet door? It's maybe 1.5 feet square. It was clearly designed for a dog, not a teenage girl, let alone one wearing a bulky winter coat. It's an escape route that isn't one, chosen at the absolute worst possible moment. The killer easily slams the door shut on her head, ending her life in a moment of sheer, baffling stupidity that remains one of the franchise's most shocking and preventable deaths. Number 1, Saw, the phone call he couldn't reach, or did he? And finally, perhaps the most infamous example of all, sealed in the lore of the Saw franchise itself. Dr. Lawrence Gordon, condemned by Jigsaw's cruel game, finds himself trapped in a bathroom with only hours to live before a lethal dose of insulin kicks in. His only chance for survival, as dictated by the game's rules, is to amputate his foot with a hacksaw, a tool previously deemed useless for cutting through the thick steel pipes, and use it to reach a phone just out of arm's reach. The iconic image is the hacksaw, the phone, and the doctor's desperate, failing reach across the floor. The horrible decision, often cited here, is his choice to saw off his foot instead of simply using the hacksaw to extend his reach and grab the phone. But is it truly that simple? Jigsaw's traps are psychological as much as physical. Perhaps the horror lies less in the method Gordon used to reach the phone, though sawing off a foot seems excessive when you have a saw capable of cutting steel pipes, and more in the fact that he refused to give up, refused to surrender to the game's implied hopelessness, even when his actions seemed illogical. Or perhaps the true horror decision is the one made by his wife, Jennifer, in the prequel, Saw 6 *, where her moment of hesitation in performing a crucial task directly leads to his agonizing predicament. Either way, the image of the man sawing off his foot, driven by the desperate need to live and answer the phone, remains a stark reminder of the extreme, often illogical lengths horror characters will go to, even when a seemingly simpler solution might have been within grasp, or perhaps, was the very trap designed to force that extreme choice. It's a decision born of absolute despair, engineered by a sadistic mind, and it will forever echo in the annals of horror cinema.